How BlackRock quietly controls the world. The power no one notices. From the outside, BlackRock looks like a normal financial company, a firm with offices, analysts, spreadsheets, and investment portfolios. But behind that corporate exterior lies an influence so deep, so widespread, that most people don't even realize how often their lives cross paths with BlackRock's decisions. This isn't a story about a company. It's a story about a silent force operating behind governments, markets, real estate, and even the technology you use daily. A force that grew so large, it quietly became essential to how the modern economy works. BlackRock didn't rise through loud marketing or public attention. Its power came from invisibility, from quietly becoming the backbone structure that supports the global financial system. And that silence is exactly what makes it powerful. The invisible beginning. BlackRock began in 1988 as a small risk management project. No one at the time, not even its founders, imagined it would one day manage more money than the GDP of most countries. Today, BlackRock manages trillions of dollars, pension fund, government reserves, university endowments, corporate assets, your retirement savings, all moving through a company most people can't even identify. While traditional giants fought for visibility, BlackRock quietly built trust. They weren't trying to dominate headlines, they were trying to dominate stability. And that approach allowed them to scale without resistance, because the world didn't see them as a threat. They saw them as a solution. That's how it became the world's most powerful asset manager, without ever needing the spotlight. The machine that sees everything. BlackRock's real power doesn't come from the money it manages. It comes from a system called ALADDIN, a financial supercomputer with access to data from some of the largest institutions on Earth. ALADDIN doesn't just track investments, it predicts risk, simulates market crashes, analyzes global events, and helps banks, governments, and corporations make trillion-dollar decisions. ALADDIN is so widely used that when it updates its models, the financial world indirectly shifts with it. Not by force, but by influence. Not by control, but by dependence. BlackRock created a tool so effective that even its competitors pay them to use it. A tool so integrated into the financial system that removing it would be like pulling electricity from a city. This secret machine quietly became the brain of modern finance, owning a piece of everything. BlackRock doesn't run around buying companies like a movie villain taking over the world. They don't need to. Instead, they created a strategy that made them part owner of almost everything. The strategy is index funds, investment products that buy small slices of thousands of companies at once. Today, BlackRock is one of the biggest shareholders in Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Meta, Tesla, Coca-Cola, Netflix, Walmart, Pfizer, Disney, Nike, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Chevron, Exxon, and hundreds more. Every major industry, every major market, every major corporation. BlackRock doesn't control these companies in the traditional sense. They don't run day-to-day operations. They don't make executive decisions. But they vote in shareholder meetings. They influence board decisions. They guide company policies around climate, governance, diversity, transparency, and long-term strategy. When BlackRock speaks, companies listen. Not because they fear the company, but because they can't afford not to. If a business depends on investment, stability, and shareholder confidence, BlackRock's opinion carries enormous weight. That's not dictatorship. That's influence on a structural level. The government's quiet advisor, maybe the most surprising part of BlackRock's story, is how deeply governments rely on it. During the 2008 financial crisis, when banks collapsed and the global economy froze, the US government called BlackRock. Not the biggest bank, not the Federal Reserve, not a national institution, a private company. BlackRock was hired to analyze toxic assets, manage recovery strategies, and stabilize markets. In 2020, during the pandemic, the government did the same thing again, handing BlackRock responsibility for managing trillion-dollar recovery programs. This was unprecedented. A private firm helping manage public money. European governments call BlackRock for debt restructuring, economic planning, asset risk analysis, banking support, energy market assessments. Even smaller nations rely on BlackRock's expertise because they can't afford to build systems as advanced as ALADDIN themselves. The line between public policy and private influence is now thinner than ever, not because BlackRock demanded it, because the world needed it. The real estate controversy. In the last decade, BlackRock entered the real estate market, and this triggered one of the biggest public debates about the company's power. In several US cities, BlackRock and similar funds began buying large quantities of homes, sometimes even entire neighborhoods. This wasn't done to take over housing. It was simply smart business. Housing is stable, rent is predictable, cities grow, demand never disappears. But when a giant like BlackRock enters the market, prices rise, homes become less affordable, competition increases for average families. As a result, BlackRock became a symbol of the idea that big finance is stealing the American dream. Whether this criticism is fair or not, it highlighted something important. BlackRock doesn't just manage money. Its decisions directly affect housing affordability, city development, rent markets, construction, demand, land values, and even migration patterns. Because when a giant moves, the ground moves with it, staying powerful by staying invisible. Most billionaires want attention. Most companies want recognition. Most CEOs want influence through fame. BlackRock chose a completely different path. They built power by staying unseen. No flashy marketing, no over-the-top PR campaigns, no public stunts, no celebrity CEOs doing dramatic interviews. While others climbed the ladder loudly, BlackRock built the staircase quietly. Their philosophy is simple. The more public you are, the easier you are to target. The more invisible you are, the more freely you can operate. Silence makes them harder to criticize. Low visibility makes them harder to regulate. Discretion makes them harder to pin down. People can talk about Amazon, Google, Meta, Tesla, but BlackRock remains in the background, influencing everything without becoming the topic itself. That's not by accident. That's by design. The global network no one sees BlackRock isn't just one company. It's a network. Branches in 30-plus countries, clients in over 100 nations. Relationships with governments, regulators, banks, and major corporations. They advise central banks. They manage pensions for teachers and city workers. They monitor risk for hospitals and universities. They influence energy companies and global industries. They guide economic stability for entire regions. Their reach isn't built on domination. It's built on trust, data, technology, and necessity. BlackRock didn't force its way into the global system. The world invited them. Why most people don't hear about BlackRock? There is a simple reason why BlackRock rarely makes news. They don't want to. The company is structured to avoid controversy, conflict, and attention. They don't sell to everyday consumers. They don't rely on public branding. They don't participate in cultural debates. They don't comment on scandals. They avoid political fights. They understand something very few corporations do. Public attention is a weakness. Quiet influence is strength. That is why people know the name Amazon, but not the name BlackRock. One sells products. The other runs the financial plumbing behind the world economy. One needs attention. The other thrives without it. The future, controlling data, not money. BlackRock's next chapter isn't about buying more assets or expanding its portfolio. It's about gaining control over the most valuable resource of the next century: information. BlackRock is investing in AI-driven financial modeling, climate analytics, global infrastructure forecasting, digital asset management, decentralized finance systems, private market intelligence, corporate governance algorithms. Their goal is simple: to be the platform the world relies on to make financial decisions, not for the next decade, but for the next century. Because whoever controls financial data controls financial outcomes. And BlackRock already sits at that crossroads, the quiet giant running the modern world. BlackRock isn't a secret villain. Its power comes from something much simpler. The world quietly started depending on it. Governments rely on its data. Corporations rely on its investments. Markets move when it moves, and most people never notice. It became the backbone of modern finance by staying useful, invisible, and everywhere at once. You may never see BlackRock, but BlackRock still shapes the world around you. If you want more breakdowns like this, leave a comment and hit subscribe for the next deep dive.